In this video, we'll look at nav components. In the next video, we're going to look at the nav bar, a wrapper for our nav that provide options, making it suitable for site-wide navigation that can be collapsed into a hamburger navigation menu, kind of what we've come to expect from Bootstrap. Again, about that in the next video, but let's talk about kind of one of the building blocks towards that. Bootstrap provides a flexible set of classes that you can use to design your own navigation, a series of vertical or horizontal hyperlinks. And so the documentation shows the use of unordered lists, so ULs and LIs with anchor tags, or shows using the HTML5 nav tag, and inside of that a series of anchor tags to create this list of hyperlinks, whether it be horizontal or vertical. So in addition to those, then you apply the two classes that are necessary to create a nav in Bootstrap. So the nav class itself, and then a nav link to the actual hyperlinks. All right. So if you're going to use, so let's go ahead and get started here. You can see that I have a new page, navclasses.html, with my template applied to it. And now inside of here, we'll go ahead and in this first row, what I'm going to do is just create a new unordered list. And I'm just going to hit tab on my keyboard to create the rest of it using just a quick code snippet there. And here we'll just go and create an anchor. Again, hitting tab, and then to change your content, we'll just go first. And so anchor tab, second, and then anchor tab, third. All right, so here we go. Let's go ahead and then apply the nav class to the unordered list itself. And then on each of the individual items, we're going to apply a nav item. So this is unique to just list items. We won't use this whenever we're doing the other version of this. So class equals nav dash item, and we'll apply that to each of the list items, like so. And that'll just remove the formatting specific to lists. And then we'll use the class nav link that I said we'll always be using whenever we're using hyperlinks inside of our nav. So you'll see that common across both versions of this, okay? And this isn't going to be much to look at this first pass, but we're building up to something here. Okay, so just a simple list with hyperlinks, and obviously the styling has been removed that you would typically see on an unordered list. All right, great. So we can also create a version of this that looks like this. So here we're going to go, well, actually, let me just add a second column to that first row. And here we're going to go and use the HTML5 nav. And inside of that, we can create 3 hyperlinks. And here again, we're going to apply our class nav to our HTML5 nav control, or element rather. And then we know we're going to apply our class equals nav link here to each of the individual anchor tags, like so, to get the following effect. And so you can see that these are now represented in a horizontal fashion as opposed to a vertical fashion. And we can add this nav inline to provide a little more space in between each of the items. All right, so nice margin there between each. We can also disable an individual link item. So it might be the one that's currently selected, for example. We could just add the disabled to it. And so now you can't click on one of the links in our nav. And so that's the basic application of the nav class, the nav link class, and then using nav item for list items, and then using nav inline for the HTML5 nav control, since it's going to put them in a more horizontal rather than vertical fashion. All right. Now, where this gets interesting is that, again, these are the lowest level components. We're going to use them in the next video whenever we're creating a nav bar. But here in this video, we're going to use them to create tabs. And so you can create a tab style navigation for it basically implies that there's hidden content that you can't see right now that's hidden on the exact same page without having to navigate to a different page beneath the active tab that's currently selected. So what we'll do is take this example, and I'm going to paste it into another cell in the second row. And all I'm going to do is add this nav tabs class. Let's see how that adjusts and changes the look of it. Okay, so you can barely see a little outline. Unfortunately, the blue colored cell is obstructing that. So I'm going to get rid of the cell class on that cell. All right, there we go. And you can see as I hover over, we see tabs. Now, they don't do anything just yet. We're going to fix that in a moment. Now, in addition to the nav tabs, there's something called nav pills. They work basically the same way. So let me just copy this and create a second cell on that same row. And instead of nav tabs, we're going to use nav pills. And then for the currently active item, let's say it's the second tab is currently open, you would add the active class to that hyperlink, so that nav link active, and that's how you'll actually see the selected pill, the current pill that's currently selected. Okay. All right. So moving on from there, you can also have vertically stacked pills. So let me make some copies here. And inside of this one, what I want to do is take this, and we're going to add in the nav stacked, so we can see they're arranged vertically. And now let's move on to actually implementing the tabs themselves so that they actually do something. And there's really, in order to create true tabs that have content that changes whenever you click on one of the nav items, you need to do two things. First of all, we got to create tab content. So it's a div with a class equals tab content. And then inside of there, we'll create a tab pane, one for every tab that we want to create content for. And then once we do that, then we're going to need to apply a data toggle attribute to each of the anchor tags. And so you'll see how that shakes out here in just a moment. So we can start with what we already have. Let's go ahead and grab this one more time. I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'll get rid of the nav stacked. We don't need that. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the pills, and we'll just use the nav tabs instead for this first demo. Right beneath it, a div class equals tab content. And then inside of there, we're going to create a div class equals tab pane for each of the tabs. So there we got 3 tabs. We'll have 3 panes. All right. And so this belongs to first. This belongs to second. And this belongs to third. We have as much content inside there as we want. I'm just keeping it really simple here. We're going to need to give each of these an ID. So I would keep it really simple, like first, second, and third. And then here, I'm going to make sure the href will point to the correct ID for each of my tab panes. So first, second, and third, make sure you use the pound symbol because you want to anchor within the page and not go to a different page. And then the last step, and this is the one that's necessary to get it all kind of wired up and working correctly, is to set the data toggle equal to tab in each of these hyperlinks, like so. And so let's go ahead and give that a whirl. All right, so you can see first, second, and third. Looks like I have an issue on the first one here. Let me figure that out real quick. All right, so here's the thing. If I have the active class applied to a given item here, then I'm going to have to apply it to the corresponding item that I want active here on the actual tab content and the tab pane that should be active. So let's go ahead and run that again. So now second is selected and it's also the pane that's being displayed. Now third, now first. Great. All right, so let's show the pill version of this. Let's take the whole thing that we just created. In fact, yeah, let's grab the whole row and I'm just going to rework it to be pills. And I think the only change I'm going to have to make here is that instead of data toggle tab, I want pill instead. There we go. All right, so with any luck, this will work. All right, there we go. Whoops. However, I'm still not getting quite. Oh, I need to change the names of these. They were. Did you see what they were doing when I clicked on these? They were opening these because I need to change this to first. Well, let's go fourth, fifth, and sixth, and we'll call this fourth, fifth, and sixth. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, so that works independent of this. Nice. All right. Now notice we get this behavior without having to write JavaScript. We just have to make sure that we have the right data toggle equals, and it should work without having to write any custom JavaScript. You can write JavaScript if you want to activate each of the tab panes and so on, but I'll let you look at the documentation for that. And then finally, let's go ahead and take this row one more time. And I want to show you how you can make the, you can add one more class here to the tab pane. We're going to go fade, and this will fade the content and give a more elegant swap between each of the tab panes. Now, for the one that's currently active, you have to use the in class and the active class. So fade in active for the currently active one, and then just fade for the others. And I'm going to have to change these names as well. 7th, 8th, and 9th. Did I spell 9th? All right, I had some weird, wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. Fix that, and now let's run it again. All right, there we go. Now it has just a very subtle, as opposed to just very abrupt change. Okay, so that is Nav, and the Nav classes help us produce higher level higher level navigation elements like tabs and like the nav bar, like we'll see in the next video. So let's continue on there, and we'll keep going. You're doing great. Thanks.